Welcome to Releasing Grief. Today I am meeting with Derek Warner Jr. to have a conversation about grief. Derek's mother was tragically murdered on her birthday in 2013. Her murder was featured on episode 8 in season 15 of The First 48. So Derek, thank you for joining me today to share your story. As we know, your mother was murdered and it was featured on an episode of The First 48. How old were you when your mother was murdered?
I was 20 years old when my mother was murdered.
And how old was she?
She had just turned 41.
And can you just give us a little bit of background about what happened, how it escalated to that point, and how your mother's murder ended up being televised on The First 48?
So this happened on August 16th, 2013. It was her birthday. And like anybody else, they want to celebrate their birthday. My mother wanted to celebrate her birthday. And she chose to go out, basically to the bars and lounges in Cleveland and have fun with her friends. So from my understanding, from what I know, she was out having fun with her friends and leaving the bar. She got into an altercation, a verbal altercation. Things escalated, and from the video, from First 48, my mother was shot and killed. I really don't know the details, why they was arguing, how the verbal altercation started. All I know is my mother was shot and killed.
Okay. Were you familiar with anyone that was involved with the altercation?
I wasn't familiar with the guys who actually was charged with the killing. I was not at all familiar with them. I knew of some of the friends my mother was with that night, but other than that, I didn't know them at all.
Were you able to attend your mother's trial? And if so, were you offered an opportunity to speak and say anything?
I was incarcerated. So how it was, my mother was murdered August 16, 2013. And 2 months later, October 16, 2013, I was incarcerated. So time passed and the court proceedings took place for my mother's murder and whatnot, and I was incarcerated the whole time throughout that. So I wasn't able to speak. I wasn't able to be there with my family. I just heard everything happened through word of mouth and through the phone, through my family, conveying the message about what happened, things like that.
Wow, that must have been really hard. Were those men that were involved, were they given a prison sentence? And if so, are they still serving their prison sentence now?
Yes, they actually didn't go to trial. They pled guilty to the charges, and one was given, from my understanding, 18 to life. That was the shooter, and I guess his co-defendant was given 15 years. So one has to go to the parole board, and the other has an out date, which once he completes the out date, he'll be released.
So you share with your audience that you were mostly raised by your big ma, and I think that anyone who has taken part in becoming a part of your audience has fallen in love with Big Ma. We all have a lot of admiration for her. Were you living with Big Ma when your mother was murdered? Were you living out on your own, or were you living with your mother?
So let me make things clear. Big Ma is my grandmother's mother on my father's side. So she's my paternal great-grandmother. Big Ma did not raise me. My grandmother, which is Big Ma's daughter, raised me, which is my father's mother, actually raised me growing up. My grandmother, I'm talking about, she's in the nursing home because she had caught COVID and was dehydrated and is trying to get her health back together. That's why she wasn't on the TV show. She would have been on the TV show if that wasn't the case. Actually, it's a clip where I went to go see her and whatnot, but they didn't show me inside the nursing home, whatnot. But Big Mom basically is like the monarch of my family. Like, she's very, how can I say this? Very instrumental in our family foundation. So, like, I always say like she the last resort because she's always going to say yes. She's never going to say no. And when it came time for me to be released from prison, because my grandmother was in the situation she was in, recovering, I knew I could go to Big Mom. Not saying she didn't raise me, because Big Mom had daycares in the city of Cleveland, not just one, not just two. She had big daycare, so she was a teacher of mine. And with her having the daycares, she taught many kids from Cleveland, East Cleveland, and surrounding areas. So she's well respected and well known for the things she have done in the community.
Thank you for clearing that up for us. And as far as your grandmother and Big Ma are concerned, what role did they play in helping you process your grief and through the grief process?
I ain't gonna say kinda, but it was real tough. You know, I was dealing with facing time, then grieving, and then things I was going through prior to that. So it was a lot to deal with. I can't say one person helped more than the other. It all played a role. Like, a lot of solitude helped me get through it, because like I said, I was out roughly a couple months until I got locked up to grieve a little bit with family, free. Like my grandmother, my big mom, my aunt, rest in peace, my other aunts. A lot of my family was there, brothers and sisters, everybody was there. But for the most part, I had to be the strong one. I had to be the one to be the strength in that time, because that was always been my role, to be the one to keep the family together, to make sure everybody is strong, like just being strong through all that. I had to be the one to do that. I had a time where I had to grieve, I cried, things like that. That's just how it was.
What about your dad? Did he play any role in all of this or helping you through your grief process? What part did he play in being a part of your support system?
To be honest with you, my father, he was crushed. It crushed him to know that, because I'm my father's first child, and by my mother, I'm my mother's second, and it crushed him. He was grieving, going through the things he was going through too, so we was both grieving, having our own individual grief to deal with. My father was there, you know, most definitely, but it was tough. Like, to even break down that night when I got the call, because you asked who I was living with, I was living on my own. Me and my brother, Darren, was living together. So that night, my brother Darren get the call. This what happened. I didn't believe it, because it was just like that didn't happen. My mother ain't get shot. So Darren left and went to the crime scene. I didn't go because I was just in disbelief. I didn't go. Something just was telling me in my spirit that didn't happen. I didn't want to believe it. I was in utter disbelief, and just something like that ain't happened to my mother, because like I just seen my mother like a few hours before it happened, and I was telling her like, Mom, let's just go out and have a family dinner. And she just wanted to party. She just wanted to kick it, you know. New car, you know, she was looking good, feeling good, and she just wanted to just live for that, you know, celebrate her birthday. So I couldn't be the one to say no. But like I said, I was in total disbelief. I ain't go to the crime scene, and it was, then Darren called me, said it was true. I was just paralyzed.
Yeah. That's very common. That's actually one of the first stages of grief when you go through the 5 stages. Denial is normally the first stage that we go through. Really sorry you had to go through that. I know that had to be hard to lose your mom at such a young age, and then followed by that, you're within a couple of months incarcerated, and just figuring out how to move forward so that you can be strong for yourself, strong for your situation that you're in and your family. What type of things did you do when you were incarcerated to like cope and just push through with that every day?
A lot of people ask that. I'm gonna be as honest as possible. When I first got in, I didn't want to deal with the reality that I was gonna be incarcerated. So I was basically fighting for my freedom, trying to get out on bond and get out to be able to get my affairs together, deal with my mother's situation, because I was basically in a position to be able to help and to be strong for my family and my siblings and whatnot. So I was just, in the beginning, just trying to get out on bond, just fighting the court system, trying to ask for release. That didn't work, so now I'm in a point where like, I'm gonna be here. So early on, I was eating, I was gambling, I was on the phone. I wasn't really so much doing too much constructive things in the beginning. I was just trying to get the days past. It was a lot to deal with, and I just knew, like, how can I get to the next day? I was numb. I was really numb. I was numb. I was numb to the fact that my mother just got murdered. I just got locked up, like, just got took off the streets, and basically I'm not coming home for a while.
So when you think of your mother, are there any foods or snacks or desserts or anything that remind you of your mom?
When I think of my mother, the first thing coming to my mind is her smile. Like her smile lights up the world. Like it's just that in itself just, cause I always used to smile growing up, and my mother's favorite color was pink, gold, and white, and things like that. That would pretty much come to mind. When it come to food, it was just basically soul food, just good soul food. My mother would cook on holidays and things like that. She liked it, I would say, like seafood for the most part. That would come to mind when I think of the food my mother liked. That's probably why I got a affinity for seafood myself.
Yeah. And what about like songs? Is there a special song that reminds you of your mom? Whether if it be a song that when you hear it, it just reminds you of her, or a song that she would play around the house that reminds you of her?
My mother liked the artist Carrie Hilson. Carrie, that's her name, Carrie Hilson?
Carrie Hilson, yes.
Yes. She liked the Carrie Hilson, and she liked that song, Turning Me On. She used to play that a lot. I guess that was one of the most recent songs that I remember. But growing up, my mother loved Mary J. Blige. That's what I can remember, like from the ages of, I want to say, 5 to like 10. That was like early 90s. So early 90s to like early 2000s. That's what she was big on, Mary J. Blige.
What about scents? Are there any scents that if you smell it, you immediately think of your
Vanilla.
mom?
Vanilla.
Vanilla?
Vanilla. She loved candles. She loved fragrances, and like the aura. She liked the things that look good, and she was in the fashion. She was in the like taking care of herself and beauty. So I got my sense of style from her. You know, keep your hair done, keep your nails clean, keep your face clean. You know, stay fresh. So that's why today I'm this way. This this an outfit in memories of my mother. She liked the white. She loved pink, gold. You know, this is my mother. She'd be happy. She'd be proud of me. She'd see me right now. So I'm doing it for myself, doing it for my family, doing it for my mother, and hoping for the best.
Yeah. And what's like one of your favorite pastimes of like something you would do with your mom?
That's a good question. The first thing that came to mind was shopping.
Yeah.
You know, shopping. My mother loved go shopping. She liked the nice things, and she always tell us, you want nice things, you gotta work for it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I was actually going to ask you, you said your mom said if you like nice things, you got to work for it. What is one of those things? We all have these phrases that our parents say to us, and as we get older, it kind of replays, or we'll say, my mother was right, things like that. What are some phrases that would remind you or make you think about your mom?
That's a good question. That's a real good question, because there's so many. It's not just one thing, because she'd be like the life of the party. She's have a way of saying things. It can be just anything, but she have a way of saying it, just light up the room. So one thing I know, it'd be like, you look good, you feel good, and everything else gonna be good. She would always say, just make sure you got yourself and your appearance together, because that first impression, the impression you have on a person lasts forever.
Yes, it does. And confidence is one of the most important things that our parents can teach us. So, Derek, as you stand right now, you were 20 years old when you lost your mom and you became incarcerated, and you've done a lot. You've persevered, you've fought through, you've brought yourself back to, feeling good about yourself. If you were to meet another 20-year-old young man or woman that had just lost their mom and they've got a lot of other things going on in the background too, and they're just trying to push through, trying to feel good again, trying to figure out, how do I persevere through this very tough time in my life? What motivates you? What would you tell them to help them kind of work their way through their grief?
I would tell them to feel. Don't be scared to feel. Like I told you, I was numb. But once I start expressing and feeling my emotions, it started getting better for me. Like, when my brother got the call and he told me, I was numb. Like I said, I was paralyzed. Like, I didn't even cry at my mother's funeral. Now, I cried after the funeral, like knowing she was in the ground, that's where she'd be resting. Like, so, because I'm so strong of a person, I would tell that person, that 20-year-old person, feel. It's okay to cry. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to talk to somebody, have a support system to talk to, and get your feelings and your emotions out. That helped me cope, So, and don't give up on yourself when you think everything is going bad. Like, that was my thing, keep hope alive. Like I said in the beginning, I was coping. Then I started dealing with it. Then I start growing and maturing while I was incarcerated. So I'm able to not only be hope for others, but actually do the things that I always want to do, positive things. Like I said, I wasn't doing so in the beginning. When I got incarcerated, I wasn't so much positive because I had to deal with a lot. And that's not an excuse, it's just more so I had to deal with a lot. I was trying to get past the days. And as time progressed, as I got older, as I matured in the system, I started being more productive. Reading, exercising, educating myself to learn how to deal with stress and depression. These coping skills I learned that helped me. So I'll tell that person, like, once you get out the phase where you let your emotions out, and that day you wake up and like, I still don't want to get out of bed anyways. Get up. Don't never give up on yourself. Believe in yourself. And if that person was a loved one who gave you that motivation, let your actions and your accomplishments make that person proud, because they still watch. They still there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. While you were incarcerated, did While you were incarcerated, were you offered any type of formal therapy? Knowing we just received this young man, he just lost his mother. She was murdered. It was televised for the world to see. And I would think that we would at least want to offer that to you. Were you offered, or did you receive any type of therapy for that?
Not at all. Then I received no therapy whatsoever. Like, the things me and others that's incarcerated go through, like death, trauma, pain, and things like that, it's like normal in there. So I'm just like one of a million. They heard the same story, whether it's mother, father, whatever loved one, they heard it so many times. They become, the institution becomes numb to it. So it's like, deal with it with yourself. Everybody cope and deal with things themselves. I like I said, I had to grow up. I had to do my own research, counsel myself. Like, and that's the honest to God truth. I'm going in the library, learning and getting these books to help me cope with the things I was going through, because I ain't had no therapist, Then everything is like, in there is like, how can I say this? You probably have one counselor in there to 1,000 inmates. So with that being said, what type of service or what type of help can you get like that? So it was more so everything that I was able to do and gain while I was in there was self. I had to do it on my own. Nobody told me, because they really When you in there, they really don't care what you do. So I cared what I did, so I got help myself. I taught myself, educated myself. And if somebody was going through the same thing I was going through, I connect with that person and we'll build so we can, be like somewhat of a support system to each other.
That quote that people say, each one teach one. And I just want to commend you, if no one else did, because rebuilding yourself is a process. It's hard. And everybody can't find it in themselves to seek out all of those ways that you spoke about. They don't know where to start. So you offering that advice is good for people to see this and see who you are today, where you sit, how you are, how you hold yourself, how you carry yourself, and pull from that and possibly, hopefully, be motivated by that as well.
And another thing I want to add is, like, my thing is don't be waiting for nobody to help you. Help yourself. Believe in yourself. You got to dig deep sometimes. Like, a lot of times when I was getting my help, it was in solitary confinement, isolation, in a single man cell by myself.
I always say grief is an individual journey, because you can have people there that can help you. You can have the books, you can have the podcasts and all these things, but you have to be willing to help yourself. You have to find it in yourself, and also a lot of prayer or faith, spiritual.
I was going to say that too. Prayer, meditation, and self-affirmations did it too for me. When a lot of times you got negative connotations attached to prison, you ain't really hearing too much good. But I always say, I'm the greatest. I'm the best. I'm a champion. These positive affirmations got me through those days, them dark times in there. And don't get me wrong, I shed a lot of tears on the pillow. Silent tears on the pillow, because I was releasing that emotion, getting it out, and not so much putting it behind me, but letting it take its course, so I can move forward.
So Derek, when I invited you here to have this conversation with me today, I asked you to go to my Instagram page and choose a quote that resonates with you as it relates to your grief journey. And the quote that you chose says, "Allowing yourself to grieve is allowing yourself to have hope. When we open our hearts to feel grief, it encourages a sense of healing." Why did you pick that quote, and what did that mean for you?
I mentioned that earlier because allowing myself to grieve meant it's just letting myself feel all the emotions that it possibly one can feel through pain, trauma, death, loss of a loved one, and my mother. And like I said, in that moment when it actually got the call, I was paralyzed. I couldn't feel. I was numb to the fact. Yeah, I was in total disbelief, but I didn't feel because I was numb. So when I chose that, I'm letting myself know and others know, grieve. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to cry. It's okay to talk to somebody else for help. It's okay to feel your emotions, to let those emotions take its course. And with that being said, the hope aspect was, I'm still alive. There's going to be a time where I got to pick my head up, wipe those tears, and keep pushing forward. That's where the hope come from, knowing that I'm still here and able to.
That's a beautiful response, Derek, because that is key. When you're grieving, you have to remember, I'm still here. I still have something to live for. I still have something to fight for, and pull yourself up. Pull yourself up. So, Derek, if there was one thing you would like for your mother to know about the man you are today, what would it be?
I would tell my mother that things you taught me, the things that you used to tell me, I remember them. I'm doing those things. I'm turning the negative into a positive. I love you, and I'm gonna continue to make you proud, and I'm gonna do my best to bring my family together, my brothers and sisters together, all on one accord. I got you like you had me. I love you forever.
So Derek, you recently got a custom tattoo of a portrait of your mother. Did you get that done here in Atlanta?
Yes, I did. Actually, my first tattoo, I thought about my mother like, this is one of the first things I wanted to get, tattoos I wanted to get after coming out of prison. So it's my mother's portrait, the picture I always love of her. And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 doves representing the 6 children she had. And the 2 roses would be me and her. Like they're shedding, kind of like tears, because the untimely death is like something that nobody in our family would thought, never would think to even like think about my mother dying that soon. So that's pretty much in the clouds. You know, her in heaven, just watching over me, always with that bright smile I told you about.
Yeah. She does have a bright smile, and it looks, whoever transferred it to
Right.
your arm did a great job.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank
Most
you
definitely.
for sharing that with us and letting us see
Appreciate it.
It's a beautiful tattoo and explaining the meaning behind it. You know, a lot of people say a tattoo needs to have like a good meaning if you're going to get one. And I think if it's going to be your first one, yeah.
Gotta have a meaning. It means so much to me. She always there with me.
Yeah. Is there anything else about your mom that you would like to share?
My mother, she was like happy spirit. Like she had a good spirit, good heart, and she wanted the best for her children. Everything she knew, what she had, she wanted to pour it into us. You know, my mother was young when she had me, so I understood the thing, the trial and tribulations she was going through as a young parent, because I was her second son. So I know it wasn't easy. You know, she was a young adult, living and learning herself. And like I said, everything she taught me and she told me, I took it all in. Because of the experiences she went through, I know she didn't really want me to go through those experiences. She wanted me to learn, not so much on my own, but learn from her. So talking to you, talking to others about death, the loss of my mother, and the trauma and the pain that I went through is therapy for me. It's how I continue to heal. Because it's not like I'm healed, I'm healing.
It's a process. It's a lifelong process. Grief doesn't go away. We just carry it with us. Some days it's light, some days it's heavy, some days we can push through it, some days we can't. But like you said, you have to allow yourself to feel.
Yes. And like with me traveling and things like that coming to Atlanta, I want her to be here with me. Mm-hmm. You know, the memories I'm making now, I want her to see them and enjoy them with me. And that's one of the reasons why I put her right there on my arm. So in my mind, she can enjoy them with me, and she's always smiling. And she always gonna be watching over me, so.
So Derek, as I always say to my following, thank you for grieving with me. Thank you for sharing your story, and I know that you being willing to come sit down here with me today and have this conversation, it is going to inspire someone, and you're going to help someone. Another young man who just has kind of lost his way, he's going to see where you are today, and he's going to be inspired by that. So I just really want to thank you and tell you how grateful I am for sharing your story and just telling us about your mom and who she was and her smile and her spirit, and just allowing us to know another layer of who you are and what makes you who you are today. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you. And for those who watching, I just want to tell you all that it's okay to grieve. It's okay to cry. It's okay to seek counseling and therapy and to get better. To each their own. And I will always say, keep your head up. Never give up on yourself.